Hey guys, it's Mike with another GodForge video. It's been a minute since I put out a video on GodForge. Simon just did a Q&A, so I'm going to do a reaction video to what he's talking about today, at least the highlights. If you want to check out the video in its entirety, I'll put a link in the comments below. I'll pin it there for you. Highly recommend it if you're looking forward to GodForge. A lot of good information in there, but we're going to touch base on a few things and see how it's going.
Hey guys, this is Simon from Fateless. Today we're going to be doing a community Q&A answering session. So we basically reached out to all of the guys in our Discord community and said, what are the big hitter questions you want answered? What would you like to understand about GodForge? And I will do my best to answer, I guess, anything that I can, right? So there's going to be some stuff where I'm still going to be a little bit on the fence, but generally I'm going to be answering as much as I can. And I just give you guys as good an info package as I can. So the first question, which I thought would be on here, is when do we know if we're picked for beta? And there's a bunch of other questions around beta, right? So when's it going to happen? How many people are going to play? All that type of stuff. So I guess, firstly, there is going to be a deep dive answer to this question on the podcast, which is coming this Thursday. We have Ash on the podcast with myself, Sham, and Brad Chosen. And basically, we talk about the beta at length and how some things are actually changing for what we originally planned for the beta. So
just take a quick pause right here. I'm actually going to back this video up just a hair. So yeah, this Thursday's podcast should be a pretty big one. It sounds like there's going to be a lot of announcements on it that are releasing some information. So looking forward to that. Coming from Fateless. You see in the background here, there's a lot of champions in here. If you stayed plugged in, you probably recognize a lot of these champions, but you can kind of see the game starting to flesh itself out with the different stances and the different weapons and so forth coming in, which is pretty cool. All in all, I think that the game looks pretty polished. It looks pretty exciting. Like I've been looking forward to this game for a long time, so I really can't wait for it to come out here. But it sounds like Thursday will be a podcast that you definitely want to tune into.
Yeah, definitely going to be a really deep dive answer to that question. And so what I can tell you right now is we've made some changes to our plan for the beta. And what that looks like is rather than we're going to throw you into a world which is half finished and give you some of the story, but all of the story and kind of let you play through some of that stuff, we're actually going to have a different experience, which we're crafting right now, which is going to be more in tune with I guess a challenge and a fun challenge at that, with the ability to win some really cool stuff. So
that sounds pretty fun. They've mentioned in the past that whatever you do in the beta will not carry over to the game, so it's more about testing, so any characters you earn or whatever the case is. That being said, when he's talking about some of the like a reward or something like that, I mean, it could be they've talked in the past about doing figurines or different art from the game and potentially giving those out or selling those. So that would be a really cool prize to win. It could also be maybe an extra skin or some sort of avatar or something like that in the game, which kind of shows that you were a beta tester, which would be kind of more bragging rights than it would be for actually, bettering your account, so to speak. But it'd be kind of fun to have something in game that you could kind of show off that I was here at ground zero. So some of those stuff could be a really cool way to engage with the fan base and kind of get them a little extra.
That's changing. It does mean that our date is going back. Our date was going to go back anyway. We've had a senior leadership meeting around this, and basically we would not have had enough of the visual effects done and polished by the time that we set. So I guess it's a watch this space in terms of time, more likely to be the very end of June, early July. And in terms of how do we know if we're picked, back to the original question, basically you will be emailed to let you know which wave of the beta you are in, alpha, beta, whatever you want to call it. You were in, and that will come through via email. We will try and get everybody who has signed up to the beta list into the game in one of the waves that we set up. So as I say,
so that's pretty cool. So they're going to try to get everybody that signed up into the waves. I'm not sure if there's certain criteria that'll eliminate you or not, my guess is, I mean, I think they said they had 25-ish thousand people sign up to be part of the beta testing. So it's going to be quite a lot of logistics, just getting all those emails out and everything else. So there might be a few people that kind of fall through the cracks. I'm hoping I'm not one of them. But as far as that goes, I think that depending on what the different waves are, if some testers might be a part of all the waves or just some of the waves, it's kind of, we'll stay tuned and find out. But you want to keep the email you signed up on, keep your eye out for that email coming in. That'll get you that confirmation that you made it into the testing.
Are there any plans for creator-specific tools like spectator modes, custom lobbies, or lore databases to help creators tell stories in the GodForge universe? Spectator modes, custom lobbies. Yeah, okay. So there's some stuff, and I don't know if this is going to be for launch, okay? So, but there is definitely some stuff we want to do. We want for PvP, we want for you to be able to just select a friend or a clanmate and battle them in PvP as like a friendly battle, right? So that's one thing we want to do. I would also like for other people in your clan to be able to spectate that fight. A bit like you get in a Clash of Clans type of model. I'm not certain that's going to be in for launch, but it's definitely something we want to do.
So that actually sounds pretty cool. Like if you had friends that are playing the game with you, you could kind of have a friendly battle just to see if you could outdo their team, or your builds are better than their builds, and kind of test out. And then potentially clanmates could actually look and watch that fight retroactively or spectate it as it's happening, I guess. I'm not entirely sure, but that sounds like a cool idea. That would kind of be a new spin on things going on in these games that I haven't seen before, where you can actually do that, which is kind of weird because like I play this game or these games with my brother and my nephew. It'd be super fun to be able to kind of take them on and see if whose account is actually better, who built their champion better, who has the better gear, who put together a better strategy, all the stuff, and test your abilities real time with those people that you're playing the game with. So I think that would be a great way to kind of increase the interaction on a game like this.
He said the game will not be pay to win. Money will only accelerate progress. Just be careful. Like I've said, there will be modes which will not be pay to win. Bit similar to what I've just spoken about just a second ago. And a free-to-play player that plays for a long time could get to the same level as a pay-to-play player, okay?
So I think this is crucial to point out here. I think it's kind of the same thing we run into in King Arthur, where, like, obviously if you pay to play, you should have advantages. Like, I mean, it's one of those things that at the end of the day, these games need to make money for them to survive and thrive. The idea would be that somebody that wants to grind the game out can put together an amazing account. It's just going to take them longer. So if you want to expedite growth in your account and things of that nature, paying, the value has to be there. Otherwise, you're not going to spend money on the game. So it's, if you're spending $20 on the game, you got to feel like you're getting some sort of benefit from that. That feels like $20 or hopefully even more, if that value feels bigger. And I would say for me personally, like King Arthur, for example, I feel like the value is definitely there for some of the packs that I've purchased, which is why I've done it, is because I feel like I'm getting more value than the money I'm putting in. And I think that's where personally Raid Shadow Legends fell down for me. It never felt that way. It felt like you could spend $50 on that game and not get anything that benefits your account because you just didn't get lucky on the summons that you were pulling with the $50 of shards you bought. So that's kind of a very discouraging feeling for a player. So hopefully we're somewhere between those two, hopefully closer to King Arthur as far as the value you feel when you're paying. But again, making that balance where a free-to-play player can put together a monster account over time, they're just going to have to grind it out a little more, is kind of part of the fun of being a free-to-play player.
But money will accelerate progress a decent amount if you want it to, right? So let's be clear, like if someone goes out and buys a ton of shards, or for us it would be Aether Stones, and gets a load of legendaries early, they're going to get somewhere quicker than you will, most likely, right? If you're free to play. In general PvE. But there will be normalized game modes, at least two, one at least on launch, where it's purely down to skill, knowledge of the game, etc., to try and win those game modes. And payment will never be like it unlocks stuff that someone that just is free to play can't do. So payment.
So that's actually a really cool aspect. They're talking about two different game modes, one for sure on launch, so the other one will probably be coming out later, where it's an equalizer. So whether you pay or whether you don't pay, your knowledge of the game is actually going to be what brings you up the leaderboards, which I think is really cool because it definitely allows you to kind of level that playing field. Now, that being said, you kind of think about those game modes and what they could be, where it's like maybe all champions are available to all players, and you start from ground zero and you work your way up, gaining, gear or stats along the way. It could be a season of a week or two where you're actually grinding out a specific thing, or potentially there's something where you have limited resources of gear and you get to pick any champion you want to put that gear on and build the best team you can to try to face a dungeon or a boss to get the highest score or whatever the case is. But all of a sudden it doesn't matter what you necessarily have on your account. So it's really evening the playing field between a whale and a free-to-play player, and really kind of starts to break down how knowledgeable you are in the game and how well you know the champions and how they work together to put together teams and synergies that work out great. So I think both of these game modes sound pretty intriguing, and I'm looking forward to it because I think it's also a unique thing that we haven't seen in any other game.
What will clans be like? Will there be clan battles with members, good rewards? So clans are a big part of our game, and the ability to be involved with your clan for a number of different areas of the game. So we definitely don't want clans to just be the place where we hang out and there's a clan boss to fight. There will be a clan boss to fight. But yeah, things like having the ability to transfer clan members between members of a cluster is definitely going to be a thing. Good clan chats will be a thing. Being able to share builds with your clan will be a thing. There will be... And I'm not going to go into all of the clan stuff, so I think I'm going to keep that under hood for now. But there is a bunch more clan stuff which will be really interesting from launch. And then things like clan wars will probably come out post-launch, but relatively soon after launch is our plan.
So that sounds pretty cool. He's talking about clusters, which I'm assuming is kind of a subcategory of the clan. Clan boss. I know Hell Hades was always big on clan boss. He loved the clan boss as far as putting together different teams and theory crafting different ways of getting extra damage. So I expect there to be a lot of pieces in there where you're kind of getting some really cool boss mechanics that you have to work through, and maybe even setting up timings and speeds. Getting all of your players dialed into specific thing. I know Deadwood Jedi did a lot of speed calculators for Raid, putting together different clan boss teams. And ultimately, I think with the rewards that clan boss dropped for Raid, as well as how engaging the content was, it was some of the best content from pretty early game. I mean, you had to get a few players on your team to be able to have some fun with it. But all the way through late game, as far as speeding up the run, as far as doing more damage, as far as all the things like one keying. So I think those things are going to be definitely front and center with the clan. And the cluster thing sounds pretty interesting as far as how that's going to work, as far as grouping people together from your clan to do things, which could be pretty cool. I do like all the animations in the background. You start to see some of these characters. This is Pandora here coming together as far as her box is sitting here and is kind of shaking and trying to get away. She's slamming the lid on it to make sure Pandora's box doesn't get open. So it's kind of cool to see the characters in their stances without just like their standard kind of generic model that they start with, and is starting to really come to life.
Okay, some quick fire ones. Will there be fusions? There's likely to be fusions, yes. Probably with an interesting spin. Probably not every single month, but there will be a way to get a legendary hero every month through an activity, not necessarily a fusion.
So this is pretty exciting, and this is something that Hell Hades, Ash, everybody's been talking about with Raid for a very long time, is how dry it gets doing the repetitive thing every time. Every time a fusion comes around and you're sitting there and you got to farm dragon 30 times or 100 times or whatever it is, and then or if you do a fragment summons and you got to go through and you're doing the same exact thing every single month, every time, and it gets kind of monotonous. So for them talking about like varying it up, having different activities, the goal to have a new legendary enter the month or enter the game every month that you can earn, I think is going to be huge to the long-term success of the game, giving you those carrots that are a little bit further away. It keeps you wanting to come back because every month there's that new character that you could stack up potentially on a free-to-play account, hopefully on a free-to-play account if you're willing to grind it out. And that way, over time, like he said in the beginning of the video, you can really stack up your account as a free-to-play player or a very low spender and have a lot of characters on your account that somebody starting the game now wouldn't have, because you've been playing the game and you've been logging in every day and getting those monthly legendary champions. So I think it's going to have a great feel to it as far as progress and growth. So it should be pretty exciting once it all comes together.
Will removing gear cost currency? So have done a full video on gear actually, and gear, to remove gear will not cost currency. The only thing to do with gear which will cost currency would be to level it and to attune it.
So this is actually really exciting. They go into, I think one of the podcasts, they were talking about the attunement of gear. I think it was with Ragewood. They were kind of going through some of that as far as what that meant. It seems like you're tuning the gear to the champion specifically. So once they're there, it's not a piece of gear you're going to move around. It's going to be kind of fine-tuned for them specifically, is what it sounded like. Now, that being said, he's mentioned that's going to cost a little bit of money to do that, but you're not going to have gear costs of moving gear around as far as changing builds and things of that nature, which I think is a huge win. Obviously, leveling gear is going to cost and so forth, so you got to figure out which pieces that you're willing to invest in and go through over time. And it seems to me once you attune them to the champion, you're probably not going to want to move them around after that, or move them around very little after that. So I think with that, as long as you haven't attuned any of the pieces right out of the gate, you could probably move them around and really kind of fine tune it to whatever teams you're building and so forth, and kind of get a feel for how that gear is working on each character before you attune it to them.
Will GodForge have multiple areas to earn stats or ability bonuses, making progression feel rewarding across different parts of the game? Yes, it will. There'll be a lot of content, especially over time. And yeah, for sure, that's definitely going to be a thing.
And I think this is what adds to a lot of the depth and strategy of a game. I mean, even playing King Arthur recently, you have the ability to upgrade your champion. You awaken your champion, you upgrade their skills, then you can also upgrade their relic. You can awaken their relic, and you can upgrade the relic skills. And as well as you can have multiple relics. So I think the thing in that adds a lot of diversity to the game and a lot of complexity for strategy and room for theory crafting and stuff of that nature, but also just over time being able to upgrade your champions. Like with Raid, you have the masteries, you have the Great Hall, you have different ways of getting more stats on your characters that are at different periods of time. So after playing 30 days, you might have very weak Great Hall, but you might have a couple characters that are level 60. But by this first year or year and a half, now all of a sudden you're kind of starting to get closer to maxing out a Great Hall. That's probably actually not true. Probably take like 4 or 5 years to max out the Great Hall, depending on how active you are in Arena. But those are different ways of kind of extending those carrots out, where you're like, hey, like this is a long-term goal that'll get you stats on all of your characters, but very slowly. And then meanwhile, you have these other ways of upgrading your characters more rapidly. And then obviously gear and attunement and all this stuff. So I feel like there's going to be a lot of ways to kind of move forward. And those incremental successes is what keeps you coming back every day, excited to see where you can press your account on in that particular day.
Will there be any data transfer from beta accounts to main game? Again, I go into full detail on that on Thursday's podcast. Ultimately, the answer is no, but there's some good reasons for that. So watch the podcast and you'll be fully informed.
So it sounds like Thursday is going to be a pretty good podcast, but I think it makes sense not to do that, because it's essentially being part of the beta testing. You get to play the game early, you get to kind of learn the ins and outs of the game, different characters and what they're doing. But when you start the game up and you actually go to launch, it'd be weird for people to be ahead of other people on the launch of the game. So I think there could be things that might bleed over, like an avatar or something like that, where you get a little bit of a cool flex where it's like, hey, I was part of the beta testing, but I think everybody starting from ground zero and working from launch date together is going to make more sense than having the beta tester starting out with 2 or 3 legendary characters or something along those lines. I think it's going to be the right move. Plus, after doing the beta testing, like it might be really cool to actually start the game over because you will have known the mistakes that you made and what you do different, and actually be able to kind of fine tune your account right out of the gate as opposed to somebody that's learning it fresh as it launches.
And last one here then from Mr. Sneaky. How do you plan to introduce new content? Is it just going to be hero releases, or are you making big events with stories to implement? I've kind of spoken about it already, actually. There will be some months or releases where it's kind of more hero based, and not just heroes, but heroes, weapons, and like small quality of life changes. And there will be bigger seasonal drops where it will be storylines come in and content which kind of like flows around that story.
So that's pretty interesting. He's talking about storylines come in and content flowing, almost like potentially campaign modes around specific characters, or even just kind of event dungeons that might be specific to a champion that's on launch, or a new faction that's coming into the game, or a new group of champions, something along those lines, which is pretty cool. So I think that all in all, as you kind of listen to what's going on, there a lot of thought is going into this game. I feel like just the team they have behind them and the suggestions that they've given over the years around Raid and other games that they've played, I really have very high expectations for this game, which is probably dangerous because, with high expectations, there's a higher rate for feeling let down. But every time they talk about it, like it just solidifies even more that I feel like this game is going to live up to every expectation and probably blow most of them away. So I cannot wait for GodForge. I think it's going to be super fun. If you thought that this, the little snippets here, the video, I'd highly recommend watching it in its entirety. Simon goes into some details and just some fun facts along the way. And then I would definitely tune in Thursday for the new episode on GodForge on their on the podcast. But I appreciate you hanging out with me and sticking with me all the way to the end. I am looking forward to covering more and more GodForge as stuff becomes available. If you appreciate the GodForge content, let me know, because the majority of my content is on King Arthur right now, just because we can actually play that game, and I've been having a great time playing it. But I am looking forward to covering GodForge when it becomes available. So appreciate you guys, and I look forward to seeing you next time.